So very good afternoon to all. So let's start with the session while the other participants join us later. So you are able to see my screen? Can someone confirm? Yeah.
Yes, Rick. Can.
Thank you, Mayur. So yeah, let's start with the session. The today's session is about the basic understanding of AutoSAR and what are all the prerequisites for an AutoSAR developer to start working on AutoSAR or throughout his career. What are the basic things that should be known to an AutoSAR developer? So this is what is the today's agenda. Let's start with the session. You can see the date here as the when was the first session. It was taken on the same topic. So the date I have written it as 27 September, and let's start with the session. As you can see here, today's agenda will be a short welcome, which we already had, and short introduction about participants and expectations. And yeah, for the first time people, yes, we have some do's and don'ts of the session, which we'll have to definitely discuss in every session, and then we will continue with our agenda of the today, which is the basics of AutoSAR. So let's start with it. So about our participants, we have beginners, proficients, and also experts. So the expectation is like the basic know-how. Whatever you will get from the session is the basic know-how of the AutoSAR, and then also the deep understanding. So whatever we have attained from our real-time examples. So we will be discussing about some real-time examples of our understanding, and then we will have our general tips for self-learning and all. So let's start with the do's and don'ts. So coming to the do's and don'ts, we have some do's. Like here in this session, we'll be considering every person who is attending, including the speaker myself. We'll be considering everyone as a beginner, so that we will not have any hesitations in asking any questions and also in clarifying them. And during the session, any basic questions can be asked without any hesitation. You can raise your hand or you can stop me, and then you can ask me for if you have any questions in that particular slide or the topic which you are discussing. And we expect even any type of basic question can be asked, so we need not hesitate, and learning will be complete only when we are able to accept the very basic questions, and we'll try to discuss and resolve them during this session. And next thing is the be proud to accept. For example, when somebody has a better understanding and they share their understandings with us, let us proudly accept that, okay, whatever my understanding is wrong, and then be open enough to learn new things from also from the others' experiences. It's more towards what we learn from their experiences. So coming to the don'ts part, yes, we have again, just a moment. Okay. Okay, do not judge any participants based on their questions and answers. So, and do not mind about what other participants will think. So just shoot out your queries wherever you feel it is needed. And in this session, we will try to ensure that there are no exaggerations done on any topic and in explaining any topic. So, and we'll try to stick on the actual facts and the actual challenges, whatever we feel on our day-to-day work. And the last and the important one, please do not mention the name of your organization, whatever you are working, or the OEM with whom you are working, or the stacks, whatever you are working. So in most of the companies, these are the general privacy related or security related concerns. So you cannot share these details. So let us not bring it. I will also be not bringing any of these things from my side. From your side also, please ensure that you are not bringing the name of your organization or your company or with the OEMs of whomever you are working. Just bring in the actual concern on the technical topic, and then we'll try to discuss on that. Okay. And now if you see here, I've just mentioned it as it's the AutoSAR developers understanding. Here we are not giving any expert's view. Whatever you will hear in this session and whatever you will see in this session are the very basics that you will also find it in the internet. But here the opportunity is we are getting the opportunity to discuss or mutually learn with other AutoSAR colleagues throughout the world. So that's the unique thing about this session. Otherwise, we are all actually going with the very basics. So here in this session, we will discuss about a brief introduction about AutoSAR. So what is this AutoSAR? Why is this needed? So why do we need AutoSAR? So AutoSAR, as you all know, it's the basic standards, a set of rules which the automotive industry is following to ensure that we are having some advantages. So what are those advantages? So before looking at the advantages, let's try to understand what are all the problems that have been faced before introduction of this AUTOSAR. So if you look at the challenges, which is the most important part here, the basic challenges were like before this AUTOSAR, if you look at any OEM, and if you look at the lifetime or the production time, or if you look at the overall development time which is taken for developing a software for one car model or one car line, is actually generally it's almost from 3 to 5 years. And let us assume there is the model didn't get succeeded, and now the car manufacturer, the OEM, is supposed to deliver a new model. So now again, if you are following the normal way of software development and preparing the ECUs, so it will take again next 5 years. Until next 5 years, the OEM doesn't have any market in the business, because whatever the model he has released is a failure. And the second thing is, now there are some problems because of this, the model is failure. So now he want to change it, he want to change some of the things. But if you look at the normal, the classic way of doing it, okay, so there all the modules are tightly coupled with each other all throughout the software development. If you look at a controller, and the controller has the respective drivers, and then these drivers are actually, and our software is developed to work along with these drivers. So everything is tightly coupled, and if you want to change any small thing, you have to change the complete hardware and software together, and also whoever is developing the software. So for example, if you have one developer, and then now if you want to bring in a new developer, so the developer would have developed the software based on his understanding and based on his own design. But for a newcomer, it is entirely new thing, and it will again take some new times. So now, and if you look at the scalability, for example, whenever we want to make use of the same software with respect to a different car line, okay, and with respect to the platform, different platforms, so all these things were actually getting very tough. And the transferability of software, like for example, when I want to give a software to my supplier, and or I want to get a software from my supplier, this software, the knowledge about the software has become the highest or the biggest concern. So because the software which was developed by a respective supplier is done as per their standards, and I may not be able to understand, as a receiver I may not be able to understand, and I have to spend a considerable amount of time in understanding the software. And the next thing is the sustainable use of the natural resources, because as we are actually, every time we are trying to develop new, so we are wasting a lot of resources, right, from the hardware which is involved and also the human resources. So we, for example, if we talk about now the fossil fuels and electric cars, so wherein when we want to move from a fossil fuel vehicle to an electric car, so obviously when you think about before AUTOSAR, then we have to the time that will be taken for this transferring from a fossil fuel level development to an electric development, it might take maybe 10 to 15 years for each vehicle line. And then maintainability during the whole product life cycle. So because of the, again, coming to the maintenance part, so once you deliver the vehicle, or when during the whole product life cycle, so when we actually, there is some issue, the issue can be resolved by only the respective developer, because he only knows. Okay, so again, all these maintenance issues. And then with respect to the safety requirements, for example, when we implement a safety analysis for a ECU, and now again you have this, again you have a different car lane, again you might have to perform the same safety analysis, and this consumes a lot of time and also the money. And then the time to market. So the time to market, if you look at the time to market means, so at what rate your customers are expecting new models from you. So if you look at today, so every year we are actually looking at a new model from each of our OEMs or the car companies. So, and now each and every day, the customer is expecting the latest features to be part of his car. When one of the car company, if they release some new feature into their car, So now all the customers are expecting the same feature to be part of their own car. So this fast enhancement of the products and fast enhancements of the new technologies and including them into their car lines, this became one of the biggest challenge for all the car OEMs, and this was actually causing losses. So now how to resolve this problem? And of course, wherever when we talk about all these places where it is more time consuming and also creating more dependencies, obviously there is a huge R&D cost involved. So to avoid these things, so all the car companies, so because this is not the problem of one particular car company, so this has become the common issue for all the car OEMs or the car companies in the world, and then they all came together and they started thinking about a solution, and the solution is this AUTOSAR architecture. Okay, the AUTOSAR development partnership was formed in July 2003, and their main target was to resolve all these problems with standardization of their development process. So, and then they jointly together are the major car companies. They decided now onwards any car which is getting manufactured should be following this unique process or this unique way of developing, that is the AUTOSAR standards, so that so when we look at a car or a production of an ECU or a development of an ECU, you will see mainly like the OEM, which is developing the car or manufacturing the car, and then you will also see some suppliers, tier 1 suppliers or tier 2 suppliers, and also some hardware companies which will be manufacturing the ECUs, or if it is kind of a tier 1, they will also supply the software along with the hardware. If it is a tier 2, they will supply the software and then the hardware will be supplied by some other supplier. So if you see all these major stakeholders in developing a ECU, so now if every one of them are following the same standards, which means they're speaking the same language, if you have to tell it in the layman terms. So when everybody speaks the same language, everybody will understand each other and there are no major issues, okay, with respect to understand each other, to understand how the other guy has developed this thing. And whenever I want to change my supplier, so now for the OEMs this becomes very easy to change their suppliers because all of their suppliers follow the same standards, and the OEM also makes use of the same standards. This makes them easy for changing the suppliers when they are not uh, okay with the performance or the quality of the supplier. So this becomes easy, and whenever they want to change the hardware as well, they were able to change this because everywhere they have made this AUTOSAR coming into picture and they have standardized the development thing. So and let's see how this AUTOSAR got evolved. AUTOSAR is not evolved in a single day. It took so many years, and if you look at the situation, so like we discussed in 2003, all the car companies joined together and started this, and in 2003 the journey started, and it majorly, if you look at the how it got evolved, they consider the AUTOSAR development as three phases. The phase one is from 2004 to 2006, where they have come up with the first version of our AUTOSAR standards, and there they had this releases 1.0, 2.0 and 2.1, where they have included almost all the major modules which are needed for an automotive ECU. And then from 2007 to 2009 they have started implementing this AUTOSAR standard, which were released previously like 1.0, 2.0 and 2.1, and whatever they have understood that these are the issues and they are not actually covering some of the requirements. So then they came up with the next releases 3.0, 3.1 and 4.0, which are like the extensions of the standards, which were the standard like 1.0, 2.0, 2.1. So the next releases were the extensions where they have included lot of other features or the new things which are coming, which are the new requirements which are coming into the picture. They have also standardized them and they have extended the development. And then in phase 3, which is from 2010 to 2013, so they went for the maintenance and the selected improvements. So then based on again on the issues what they have observed in the real-time scenarios, they started again updating the specs, and they have come up with the releases like 3.2, 4.1 and 4.2, wherein they have already also included, for example, most of the requirements are with respect to the new technologies. and the new requirements which are coming into the use cases. And in 2013, sorry, the AutoSAR consortium entered into continuous working mode for its classic platform to maintain the standard and provide selected improvements, including release 4.2 and 1.0 for acceptance of tests. So release 4.2 is again the extension, so which you have seen from 2013, and they have also come up with the standardization of the acceptance test. So it's just not for the development, even with respect to the acceptance test. So they have come up with standard rules which has to be followed across all the software development life cycles. So in 2016, now the major buzzword, the adaptive platform came into picture, and this was first release has happened in in the early 2017, and we have also the next releases in October 2017 and also in March 2018. So this adaptive AutoSAR is again to support the new technologies which are coming, autonomous driving and then connectivity to cloud and all these topics where we have to adapt or work together with other platforms along with the AutoSAR platform. So they have come up with this adaptive platform. As the name suggests, it is adaptation to the new requirements. So that's the thing, and wherein we'll have the Linux and POSIX things coming into picture. Okay, which is again a different vast topic to discuss. And with release of 1810 in 2018, so basically we can say like the major development activities are finally published, and now we have AutoSAR Classic, AutoSAR Adaptive, and also the Foundation. Foundation is again like a combination. So now this was the little introduction about how AutoSAR evolved. As you can see, journey started in 2003 and now we are in 2020. It is still evolving every day, and we have new standards coming into picture. And all these new standards are based on our observations after we implement or we execute our software development on these standards, and based on the different use cases which have been missed in the previous versions of AutoSAR, they have started including them. And also along with that, with respect to the new technologies coming and becoming a part of automotive, I think when we look at the past, the car is just for traveling. Now it became the second home for every person. So now we are expecting everything inside our cars, and so the requirements of a passenger or a vehicle user is increasing day by day very rapidly. And along with the rapid development in the technologies, we also need the similar development in the standards. Otherwise, again, it will become something which cannot be resolved so easily. So the AutoSAR organization is continuously working on including the standards, and we will have continuous developments. So this is the general one very basic overview of how AutoSAR got evolved. Now let us actually now jump into the actual topic. So I have a question now. So basically the question is about, so most of you people who are attending this session, I believe you would have been working or have worked in any kind of an embedded system. So the question now is like, what are the different standard components? What do you see in an embedded system? What do you call, so when you call a system as an embedded system? Does anyone has any idea on this? Your view?
Mainly embedded system contain that specific action whenever we'll perform any specific action, combination of software plus hardware.
Software plus hardware. Good. This is the, yes, definitely this is the first level. Can we go a little bit deeper? So what do we mean by software? What do you mean by hardware? So hardware, we know it's like a controller, right?
Yeah, hardware is a controller, and some specific action. For example, we need to deploy a airbag means. So at that time, our main focus will be we need a one real-time system, operating system.
Yeah. So you need OS to run. Yeah. What else we need?
Yeah, we need a one controller and one operating system. And software purpose, we need a one language like a C language. Mostly we will use embedded C.
You are saying, okay, let us go to the hardware level. For example, when you say controller, okay, what does this controller contains?
Microprocessor and memory and input output.
The IO. So you have some IO, and we talked about an OS. Okay, and to store the
And
data.
we need the store the data purpose, maybe data flash or maybe EEPROM.
Kind of memory.
Uh,
Yeah, you will need some memory
yeah,
device. Yeah, so we need
yeah,
some memory.
some
We need
memory
an
device.
OS. We need some IO.
And yeah, iOS means we need some protocols like SPI, I2C, and LIN or CAN or Flex, whatever. We need a small protocol also for transmission.
Yeah, that is for the software. We are actually talking
Yeah.
about at the hardware level. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay. Then we need some sensors also. We need to sense the some of the contents, and we need some sensors.
yeah, so IOs basically. So let's
Yes.
see. So this is what we have discussed, right? So we need an operating system. We need some memory, and to communicate, we talked about like CAN, LIN, or SPI or I2C, any of these things, and then input output. So wherever the sensors will be the inputs, and then if we have some actuators, that will become the outputs. Correct, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, these are the four components that you will see in our embedded system. Okay. So now when they are talking about setting up the AUTOSAR architecture, okay, so now they have to follow some method. So which is common, or the very regular thing that you will see in any embedded system. If you look at our automotive ECUs are also embedded systems. Okay, but with powerful controllers to execute a large amount of code. So considering this as the very base, okay, now even the AUTOSAR architecture, when our AUTOSAR organization was starting to start what we call put the standards or the rules. So they should have some architecture. So now they're actually going to prepare an architecture which should be universally serving the purpose of all the automotive suppliers and all the automotive OEMs. Okay, so now they followed the same thing and they came up with this architecture. So if you look at these things, so if you can see, we have the same thing. So if you look at the verticals, if you see, so there we have the OS, that is the system services, and then we again the memory part and the communication, and then IO, and along with this there was one more block, if you can see, that is the complex drivers. Okay, so these five are called the five pillars of AUTOSAR architecture. OS is one pillar, memory is one pillar, and communication another pillar. IO is the fourth pillar, and the fifth pillar is the complex drivers. So complex drivers are something like, now we are actually transform, or we want to change from a non-AUTOSAR way of implementation to a AUTOSAR way of implementation, and we want to apply standardization of rules. So like we discussed, it is not possible, or it may not be possible, to standardize every single component, or either it can be part of our software, or it can be our what we call some modules inside our software. They might not be able to standardize, or some things are very complex, like because they are again which are very much specific to the respective hardware or specific to the respective car requirement. So there might be some of the modules which may not be what we call common for all the OEMs, and in such cases how to handle that. So they have bring in this new concept of complex drivers, where these complex drivers can be specifically developed to match some specific requirements or special requirements of the TCU. So apart from the general standard components in an embedded system, they have also brought this fifth pillar as the complex drivers. We will look at this more details about the complex drivers in the next slides. So I guess your people are all convinced now, right? So now we are bringing the same architecture of a standard embedded system to our standard AUTOSAR architecture. Clear? So now the key understandings for an AUTOSAR learner. So the key understanding, so if you look at AUTOSAR, as you have seen from the previous diagram, it is all separated into different layers. Okay, AUTOSAR is very famously known as also the layered architecture, where each layer is independent. So this is the basic thing that we will hear throughout or anywhere outside. So now when we say each layer is independent, what do we mean by that? So what is that we have to know when we talk about this independence? So when we look at the AUTOSAR layered architecture, the main intention is to make the layers independent of each other. But there is always strong relationship between them. This is the main thing which we have to understand. Even though each layer is independent, okay, but each layer is developed to actually match the layers above and below. Always every layer has a layer above and a layer below. Okay, even for the MCAL layer, whatever is the last layer when we talk, we have the hardware below that. Okay, so each layer is developed to match the other layers, and they have a strong relation. There are strong set of rules which are recommended on how to develop each layer so that this independence, layer independence, is made possible. So this is what we have to clearly understand. When we say independent, it's not that okay, I will do anything with my this particular layer and the other layers I don't bother. So that is not the understanding here. So we have to ensure that we are strictly following whatever all the AUTOSAR recommended rules for developing your layer, your respective layer, so that you do not need to reconfirm that okay, whether my upper layer and the below layer is actually is matching with my thing. So without this knowledge, if I try to develop a layer or try to develop a module in a particular layer, and later we will come to a situation that okay, no, I'm all good with my module and my layer, but I may not be able to match the requirements which are needed by the above module and which are needed by the below module, and I become totally useless. Okay, so we have to strongly understand that whenever we are talking about the layer independence, we are independent of the other layers, but still we are actually going in line with the other layers. The next thing is AUTOSAR is dedicated for automotive ECUs. So when we talk about AUTOSAR standards are only for automotive ECUs. They are not setting the standards for anything else. Okay, so AUTOSAR talks only about the standardization to be done for an automotive ECU. So in AUTOSAR sense, always an ECU is actually one microcontroller. So for example, in your board, if you have more than one microcontroller, for example, if I take the driver information systems, so you will generally have two controllers there. So one controller is like which will be running the software, and the another controller is generally the graphics controller, which will be used for showing the information that was processed on the backend. So generally you will see two controllers. So in the context, if you say like your ECU has two controllers, and if the two ECUs are running on AUTOSAR standard, so then you have to consider that as like two ECUs, even though it is one single board. A single ECU instance is always about a single microcontroller. So when you have more than one microcontroller, you have to consider that as a separate instance, and you have to develop a separate architecture or separate system to handle both the controllers. So we cannot club them. So this is the basic understanding we need. And the second thing is mechanical design is not part of the scope of the AUTOSAR. AUTOSAR doesn't tell you any, or it will not give you any recommendations or rules on how your mechanical design. So mechanical design has again different standards or IPv standards. Okay, so and the AUTOSAR doesn't give you any rules for the mechanical design. So that's what we have discussed here, which means more than one microcontroller is arranged in a housing, then each microcontroller requires its own description of AUTOSAR ECU instance. So for each controller, you have to again create the complete all the layered architecture, starting from MCAL until the application layer. You have to design individual systems for each of your microcontrollers inside even if they are on the same board. So always when we talk about AUTOSAR, it is for one single ECU, and for each single ECU, we mean one microcontroller. And the next thing is the AUTOSAR software architecture is generic approach. So this AUTOSAR software, it is kind of a generic approach. So what is the advantage with this? So what is that it will allow, and what is that it will not allow? So if you look at what it will allow, standard modules can be extended in functionality while still being compliant. Their configuration has to be considered in automatic basics on software configuration process. Okay, so basically if you look at here, what do we mean by this? So we have standard modules. For example, when we talk about memory, we have NVM. When we talk about diagnostics, we have DCM and COM for communication services. So each of these modules, we can actually keep on extending their features. That's what we are seeing the new standards. So it is allowed to enhance these features, but still the main thing which we have to importantly, we have to always keep in mind is the compliance. So always it should be following the standard rules of AUTOSAR. That's the standard compliance what we are talking. So we can enhance the features existing all the modules which are AutoSAR modules. We can enhance them to any extent so that it becomes more of quality and also the stability. So this is allowed. But whereas if you see, look at the non-standard modules, so that's what we talked about, the complex drivers. So wherever it is not possible to standardize the modules, so there we have the possibility to integrate our complex drivers, okay, and develop the whatever is all the other functionalities which are not supported by the AutoSAR. This can be developed as a complex driver, and still that can be integrated as a part of our AutoSAR system. So that is what the AutoSAR allows us. And what it doesn't allow is we cannot add any further layers. So the architecture is already clear. We have all the layers in place, whatever is all needed, because this layered architecture, whatever we see as a standard today, there has been a lot of research done and to come up with all the 5 pillars and the 3 or 4 layers, if you include the RT and application layers. Yeah. So all these layers, there has been a lot of research done and they have finalized these layers. So now whatever we add will be part of any of these layers, but it will not be like a creation of a new layer, because again creation of a new layer is again a different, like where it's not about only about the horizontals, we also need to think about the verticals. With any layer you are adding, you should also think about what will be the impact on the other layers in the vertical side. So AutoSAR allows you to enhance your standard components. AutoSAR allows you to add complex drivers which are not, wherever it is the compliance is, wherever the standardization is not possible, compliance will still be there. And for the further layers, it cannot be added. So now we understood what is the AutoSAR and how these AutoSAR layers are formed and how they have been standardized. But now, and also we have seen what are the basic understanding that is needed for an AutoSAR developer. When I say like I'm working for an AutoSAR based architecture, you should also understand how what do we mean by a ECU in AutoSAR context, and where AutoSAR is applicable, where AutoSAR standards are not applicable, what AutoSAR allows you to do, what AutoSAR doesn't allow you to do. So this is now what we have covered until now. Now let's look at each of these layers. We have mentioned like we have now AutoSAR is a layered architecture and we have some layers. We'll go with each one of these layers one by one. So again, if you look at the MCAL, so MCAL is nothing but the microcontroller abstraction layer. So as we have discussed, the main intention or the main need of an AutoSAR architecture is to make each layer independent of the other, so that it can resolve the problems of dependency of the suppliers, dependency of the stacks, and dependency of the different hardwares, all those things. So now when we talk about hardware, so how we can make it independent, so how we can standardize the hardware related software which will be actually coming as a part of the MCAL. So how we can make it independent, how we can standardize this hardware related software modules so that we can make it independent to all the above layers. So if you look at the main thing, so the main thing what we will have to understand when we discuss about the microcontroller abstraction layer is that the main task of this controller abstraction layer is make the higher software layers independent of microcontroller. So MCAL is the only thing which will be interacting with the microcontroller. So MCAL makes all the above layers independent. So above MCAL are all our software layers. So all the software layers, they should be made independent of a microcontroller. So now the OEM, when they want to change any of the controller, then they should not bother about the changing the entire software architecture or entire software components above this microcontroller abstraction layer. So when we want to change any controller, so generally what are the situations that we will be forced where we have to change a microcontroller is, if you look at the general our day-to-day issues, we will have issues like on the performance, we will have issues on the memory mostly. So, and these are the two things, and sometimes we might need to add or change to a new communication protocol. For example, earlier we used to generally see CAN and then LIN and then FlexRay, and now when we want to add Ethernet, and if our controller doesn't support Ethernet and now I need Ethernet for my ECU, obviously have to go for a completely new controller, and when I go for a new controller, so do I need to change the complete software? So without AutoSAR, yes, because now I have developed the software, everything to the CAN and LIN and the respective controller, and now my controller got changed. So which means all my IO channels will change, the respective channel numbers will change, respective IO pins will change, and also it's a completely new memory layout, all these things. So now before AutoSAR, yes, I have to develop the complete software, which might take maybe again years together. But now with respect to the bringing in this MCAL layer is the standard one, which will ensure that irrespective of whatever is the controller you are using, all the above level software is always stable. You need not change. For example, when I say about adding a new Ethernet communication protocol, we might need to add the components which are related to Ethernet on the verticals. But apart from that, you need not disturb the rest of the modules in your project, including your application layer. Okay, so this is what is the advantage in bringing in this AutoSAR layered architecture. And now let's see what is this MCAL layer doing. So the main task, like we discussed, the main task is to make the higher software layers independent of the microcontroller. And if you look at the implementation of microcontroller abstraction layer is completely microcontroller dependent. Every time you change the microcontroller, you will have to, or you will be forced to change or update your MCAL layer. And the upper interface is always needs to be standardized. So the interfaces that we give from the MCAL layer to the upper layers, they are all need to be AutoSAR standardized. Of course, they are all microcontroller independent. So which means that when we are developing the MCAL layer, we have to ensure that all the interfaces that we are giving to the upper level layers to interact with the microcontroller, they are all standardized interfaces, so that we need not bother, because all the above layers are also standardized or developed as per the AutoSAR standards. Obviously the interfaces will match, and it is no more a new kind of development or investment in the R&D. Okay, so now what are all there inside this MCAL layer? So inside this MCAL layer, we will have internal drivers, okay, for handling the internal devices. So inside your controller, what will have an internal EEPROM, you can have an internal communication controllers like CAN, LIN, and FlexRay or Ethernet, and then you will have ADC channels, so internal ADC, which are internal. So all the entities which are internal to your microcontroller, you will have the internal drivers for these things, and these internal drivers will be part of your MCAL layer. And we will also have external drivers, these again for handling the external devices, so which are not part of your controller, and they are again separate chips on your board where we have to interact, and we will be able to control these using the external drivers. And examples are like external EEPROM, external watchdog, and external flash related memory chip or something like that. So all these external drivers will also be part of this MCAL layer. And with respect to accessing, so how you will be accessing this internal, for example, how these internal drivers will be accessing the internal modules, and how they will be accessing the external modules. So accessing using MCAL driver, so a driver for an external EEPROM with SPI interface. If you look at the external EEPROM, how this is interface is using an SPI interface, and this will be handled by a handler or a driver. So we will see more details about what is a handler in the next slides. So they will be handled using a handler. And in case of direct access, so some things, so we will have the direct access, the drivers for memory mapped external devices. So we will have the direct access for the microcontroller enabled here. So these are the two types of controllers or the drivers which will be having in our MCAL layer. So now next move to the ECU abstraction layer. Here we will also discussing about the handlers a little bit more deeper. So then when after the MCAL layer, now we have developed a software which is actually developed as per the controller, whatever you have in your ECU, and you have created standard interfaces for the usage of the above level layers. And the next immediate layer is the ECU abstraction layer. So ECU abstraction layer, if you can see, it interfaces the drivers, like whatever we have the drivers in this MCAL layer with the above level layers. Okay, so it also contains driver for external devices, so drivers, and it offers API for access to peripherals. So the peripherals means what we are talking about, the hardware peripherals and devices. So irrespective of their whether they are internal to the controller, whether they're external to the external drivers. So this ECU abstraction layer, it will enable the upper layers with interaction with these hardware peripherals, internal or external. And the main task, if you see, the make higher software layers, which is nothing but the service layer, application layer, and RT layer, independent of the hardware layout. And the implementation is microcontroller independent, because now we are above the microcontroller abstraction layer. Obviously, it's so now we became microcontroller independent, but it is hardware dependent. So what do we mean by this hardware dependent? For example, it is based on your hardware. For example, if you have CAN communication, which means you will have CAN hardware channels, and if you have LIN, if you will have LIN hardware channels. So based on these hardware related constraints, your modules inside this abstraction layer, ECU abstraction layer, will be dependent. So when I talk about CAN as a module, so when I talk about microcontroller abstraction layer, we'll have the CAN driver and the CAN transceiver driver. And in the ECU abstraction layer, you will have the CANIF layer. And if you don't have CAN communication, you will not find this CANIF. So this is what we are talking. It is hardware dependent. And the upper interface is again microcontroller and ECU hardware independent. The upper interface is the service interface or the service layer, where this is again microcontroller independent, and also it is hardware independent. So any module, for example, if you look at any module in the service layer, they don't really bother about what is your hardware related constraints. So they don't bother about which communication protocol you are using, whether you are using CAN, LIN, or Ethernet, or FlexRay. For the service layer, there is no big impact on this. So at the service layer, it is all with respect to the services which they are going to provide to the application layer, irrespective of any of the hardware related dependencies like communication protocols or IO device or whatever it is. So what do we need to know more about in the ECU abstraction layer? So ECU abstraction layer is we will have interface modules in the ECU abstraction layer. An interface module provides a generic API to access a specific type of device independent on the number of existing devices of the type and independent of the hardware realization of different devices. So what do we mean by this? So basically, when we say about we have, let's say, 4 CAN channels in your hardware, and now do we need 4 CANIF modules? No, all the channels of a particular communication protocol will be handled by the single interface module, that is the CANIF. That's what we are discussing in this point. This is device independent and also on the number of existing devices, okay, in that type. So irrespective of how many number of CAN channels you have, you'll have one single interface module. And a typical example, an interface for a CAN communication system provides generic API to access the CAN communication networks independent on number of CAN controllers. That's what we have discussed. And interface module does not change the content of data. This is very important point. So when we talk about an interface module, let's say CANIF, okay, or socket adapter in the case of Ethernet. So these modules, they do the postman job. They don't do anything. They don't alter the data. They don't change the data. They don't update the data. So they take the data as it is coming from the MCAL layer, and it will pass it on to the service layer. Okay, so this interface modules, it won't touch the data. So this is which we have to understand. Whereas we will see how service modules will be behaving in this point. So, and we discussed in the MCAL and ECU abstraction layer, we talked about some handlers. So why do we need handlers? So if you look at handler, a handler is a specific interface which controls the concurrent, multiple, and asynchronous access of one or multiple clients to one or more drivers. So like we discussed, we can have one controller, and then for each controller we have a driver and all those things. So now when we talk about large amount of data, where we will need the queuing and buffering and handling of this data. Okay, so and all these things are done by the handler. Okay, so when we look at a handler, the functionalities of a handler, the handler will be performing the buffering, queuing, arbitration, and multiplexing. All these jobs are done by a handler. The handler does not change the content of the data. So again, like the interface modules, the handler also, it will not change any content of the data. It will only help in queuing the data or handling the data in a proper format. But apart from queuing or handling this data, it won't again touch the data. So handler functionality is often incorporated in the driver. So where do we find these handlers? Are you will find them in the driver modules. So for example, if you say SPI as one of the drivers, so SPI handler driver will have, again ADC driver will have these handlers. So these handlers are actually responsible for buffering the data and handling the data in a proper order. So okay, now we have looked at the handlers. Now let's look at the service layer. So now we have MCAL layer, which is developed as per AUTOSAR standards. Now we have interface modules, which are part of the ECU abstraction layer. Again, these are now available, and again these are also developed as per the standard AUTOSAR guidelines. So which means again they have interfaces available to the upper layer. The upper layer is the service layer. So the service layer can make use of this ECU abstraction layer provided standard interfaces to provide services to the upper level layer. So let's see what is the service layer contains. So service layer is the highest layer, if you can see in the basic software. So you can see here, which also applies for its relevance for the application software, while access to IO signals is covered by the ECU abstraction layer, the service layer offers. So wherever we are talking about ECU abstraction layer, when we are talking about the IO signals, so this is part of the ECU abstraction layer. But apart from this, what does the service layer support? Service layer has got the operating system functionality, the OS, AUTOSAR OS, and then vehicle network communication and management services. When we talk about communication and management services, we are talking about modules like COMM and ECM, okay, and BSWM, all these modules, management modules. And memory services. So memory services are nothing but the NVRAM management. I think in the service layer, you will have the NVM, which is the non-volatile memory manager, and the diagnostic services. For the diagnostic services, we will have DEM, DCM, and FIM modules. And we will have the ECU state management. Yes, I talked about the ECU manager, and then mode management. So COMM, and when I talked about network related management, we are talking about the NM modules, and logical and temporal program flow monitoring like watchdog manager and all. So where we want to have the time monitorings, so are the program monitoring, so the sequence, how it is executed, or the time like deadline monitoring and alive monitoring, we will have the watchdog manager to provide these services. And cryptographic services, we will have the CSM, that is the crypto service manager module. So these are all the different modules that you will see inside this service layer. And if you look at what is the main task is to provide basic services to the application layers. So we have the application layer and the RTE and the other BSW modules. So each module in the service layer is responsible for providing services to the upper layers and also to the other BSW modules in this layer. Okay, and the main properties, if you see, this is mostly microcontroller and ECU hardware independent. Okay, upper interface is here for us the RTE layer and the application layer. These both are microcontroller and ECU hardware independent. But like we discussed in the beginning, when I say independence doesn't mean that they are out of standards. So always follow the standards set by the AUTOSAR guidelines. So what is more to know about this service layer? The key points. So managers are the services to multiple clients. So it will be providing each manager here, whatever we have talked about, communication managers or memory managers or diagnostic managers, all of these managers provide services to multiple clients, so to multiple applications. And if you look at the service layer also does this handling job, whatever the handler related functionalities we have discussed, like queuing, buffering, and all those things. The service layer also does this handler functionality. Plus, the extra thing what service layer does is this updating the content of the data. So what do we mean by updating and continuing what we call content of the data? So the best example what we can take is let's say in COM. So where we can actually validate the data. So the COM module has the capability to check the internal data coming, and in case of any timeouts or any failures, so it has the possibility to update this data with some valid data. Whenever the data is found to be invalid, so it has the possibility to update and give it in a proper usable values to the upper level layers. The upper layer is again RT and the application layer, and also to the other modules. So whenever it has some, so each service layer module will be performing the evaluation of the data, and it can alter the data based on our requirements, which means again we'll be configuring what we want to be done. So, but the service layer is the only module which has the possibility or a chance to update the data which is coming from the outside the ECU, or it can also change the data going outside from our ECU. So service layer is the only module. All the below level layers, the ECU abstraction layer and the MCAL layer, has no possibility or has no rights to update or change the data. This is the most important thing we have to understand. So whenever we see that the data is coming inside our controller, and then where we need to start monitoring our data, whether it is the data received actually from the hardware or it is the data which is altered or updated by the service layer, is in the service layer modules. We will have to understand what is happening here. Of course, the service layer modules will also provide you with information in case of any errors or any irregularities. They will have the standard interfaces to give this information, and from that we'll come to an understanding, yes, this is an altered data, or it is the actual original data which I have received from the communication bus. So the last, again, the fifth pillar, whatever we spoke, is the complex drivers. So the complex drivers, like we discussed, the complex drivers are like, they are not completely AUTOSAR compliant, but still they follow the standard APIs which are as per the AUTOSAR, but inside the functionality, okay, how they handle and all those things are not completely compliant to AUTOSAR. And why are they needed? So let's see. So the complex driver layer spans from the hardware to the RTE. So unlike all the other modules where they follow the layered architecture, the complex drivers are spread across directly from microcontroller layer to the complete to the application layer. So what is the advantage? So this is like our minister in our chess. Okay, so it has access to all the layers directly. So it can directly access any layer. It can directly access, it can read or write the data to the microcontroller. It can read the data from the abstraction layer or give the information to abstraction layer. It can also interact with ECU abstraction layer modules directly. It can also directly talk to service layer modules, and it can also provide services to the application layer directly with the help of RTE. Okay, so it can, so the advantage is, where do we need such, the typical use case for a complex drivers in our day-to-day modules is, from my experience, we have used it for kind of graphic interface related drivers. For example, if you have a display driver and this display driver need to be initialized or started at very fast rate, and when we follow the AUTOSAR standards and when we flow through these layers, each module has to initialize and then it has to give the indication to the next module, and this is how the initialization sequence will happen in AUTOSAR architecture. Okay, but if you are actually stuck in this initialization of some module and then you are waiting for your module to initialize, and then it might be too late. So in such cases, we prefer the complex drivers where we need not go and sit in the queue of a standard AUTOSAR initialization. So our module can be implemented at a separate thing, so where we can achieve faster time frames or faster time requirements. So in such cases where your AUTOSAR architecture is becoming a disadvantage, so now AUTOSAR has allowed you to create your own complex driver component to achieve the specific or special requirements of your ECU. Or the other typical use cases where you have developed a component which is very much specific to your controller and specific to your ECU, and this is a huge module which cannot be directly changed in one single step. So you will need some time. Maybe after 1 or 2 car lines, you will be able to slowly change the functionality of this your module slowly to which is to the AUTOSAR, and what we call following all the AUTOSAR standards. But meanwhile, for that you cannot stop your development. So meanwhile, the possibility is to bring in that module as a complex driver module, only updating the standard interfaces on how it can interact with all the layers. Apart from that, the internal functionality, you can still retain your own functionality, and you can give or interact with all the other AUTOSAR modules. These are the 2 typical use cases that you will see and when we will need a complex driver. So let's look at what are the tasks involved. So it provides the possibility to integrate special purpose functionality, like we discussed, the driver for devices which are not specific within AutoSAR, so which is not mentioned as a part of AutoSAR, and with very high timing constraints, like I mentioned. We will be the general timing constraints I have experienced is the display driver related requirements. Similarly, if we have anything like the fast sensor reading or reading of the sensor data and then reacting within a very high timing situation. So in such situations, you need not follow the standard AutoSAR, or you can design your complex driver according to that, and still you are able to make that as a part of your AutoSAR system. And the third thing is the migration topic, which I've also discussed now. The migration is topic like where you have a large amount of data or large implementation, which is not possible to migrate in a single step. So in such cases, you can make use of this complex drivers. And if you look at the properties, implementation might be an application mostly, or might be an application, and microcontroller ECU hardware dependent. So basically these complex drivers, in case of applications, if you see, they're all dependent on the microcontroller layer and the ECU hardware dependent, because they are supposed to interact with all the layers. In such case, we have to ensure that it is in compliance with every layer. So here you will have to ensure that your complex driver is not causing any problem to the existing system. So again, like, you are forced to be more careful when we are using a complex driver. So when we make use of the AutoSAR standard module, AutoSAR takes care of everything, or the stack supplier, whoever is providing you the stack, they will ensure that even if you are making some mistake, the tool will actually throw you, or it will highlight you with the issue, or there is some way of wrong configuration, or it is against the AutoSAR guidelines. But whereas in the kind of a complex driver, it is the developer's responsibility to ensure that they are not causing any problem to the existing AutoSAR system. And the upper interface, it can be an application, it can be microcontroller and ECU hardware dependent. So generally, again, complex drivers, if we are talking about the upper interfaces, so like we mentioned, it can discuss with any of these layers. So it again can be an application, and again, microcontroller ECU hardware dependent. So that's what we have to ensure, that whenever we are having a complex driver, so we have to ensure that the complex driver is in compliance with the rest of the other layers inside your system. This is what you have to be with respect to the tips. So the thing what we need to discuss is, when we talk about complex drivers in your regular day-to-day experience, or when you are working in any project, you will have two types of CDDs: the CDD in application layer and CDD in BSW layer. Okay, so CDD in application layer is like, for example, if you are having a complex driver module in the application layer where you are interacting, where general use case will be kind of wrapper modules, which will be interacting with the controller layer, and it will be providing the controller related data, like sensor data and actuator controls from the application to the controller directly. So these are the standard applications, or standard use cases that will be coming across in our day-to-day systems. So where one end of the system will be like, you are interacting with the application layer, providing client server interfaces. So I think we haven't discussed that. So any interface coming from the service layer or the below level layers to the application layer, always they are based on a client server interface. The sender receiver interfaces are not supported. So where always the service provider or the service module will provide services to the application layer. So where it will become the server, and always the application will become the client module, where it will be requesting the server module for some services. And similarly, in case of a complex driver also, the complex driver module will have standard services supported by the client server interfaces, wherein again the complex driver module will be the server providing services to the application layer. On the other hand, they will have the direct function calls from their module to the microcontroller or the microcontroller abstraction layer. So wherein it will be fetching the data or giving the controller, writing some data into the controller. So on one end, it is compliance to the RT or the application layer or the RT interfaces. And these kind of modules are called the application layer CDD modules. And we also have CDDs in BSW layer. For example, when you talk about special BSW in case of BSW layers. So when we talk about a complex driver which need not interact with the application layer, which means it doesn't follow any of the RTE standards, RTE interfaces. So wherein it will be interacting directly with the BSW modules. So we'll be creating CDD modules in the BSW layer. So in your stack, when you want to create, so you will see in the BSW, you will see one CDD module. So when we make use of that CDD module, you have to understand that you have access to only to the BSW layer modules. You cannot interact with the application modules by creating a CDD in the BSW layer. Whereas in case of CDD application layer, this application layer CDD will be used only when we want to interact or interact with the application modules or provide services to the application modules. So with the CDD in BSW layer, you cannot provide services to the application modules. This is one important thing you should understand. So next thing what we need to important. So now we have seen MCAL, we have seen EC abstraction layer, we have seen service layer, we have seen also the complex drivers. The other thing which is highly useful in our AutoSAR development are the libraries. So the AutoSAR has some standard libraries. So whereas in the case of safety implementations, so you will need the checksum verification using the CRC checksum. So and then you will have the E2E related libraries for end-to-end communication protection, and similarly some other kind of libraries in case of security. So all these libraries are standardized and available as a part of your AutoSAR delivery. And let's see what is this. So as you can see, it is spread across these library modules can be used, or libraries can be used by across by any of the layers. Okay, and if you can see, can be called by BSW modules, including RTE, software components, libraries, or integration code. So these libraries can be made used by any of these modules. Even the BSW modules can use it. Application modules, you can also make use of this standard libraries for standard implementations. So they run in the context of the caller and the same protection environment. So what do we mean by the context of the caller is that these libraries will not be running on their own. Okay, so the libraries will be executed, the library functions will be executed only when some caller calls it. Otherwise, they are like the idle code in your software. If nobody is still using them, so it's just lying in your code, but it never be executed, or it will never be called. So can only call libraries. So we can only call libraries. They are all reentrant. Like it is possible to call them, or it is possible to enter again and again in the execution, and do not have internal states. So this library modules will not have states like init, run mode, or start, or all those things. So they are just simply services or service functions. So you just call them and then they execute and then they are done. So do not require any initialization. So these modules do not, the ET libraries are the general library modules. They do not need to be initialized because they are just working or performing based on the input data that is already initialized or validated in your module, and then you are just passing this data to this library function, and you are getting the required output based on the whatever is the library function. They are synchronous, that they do not have wait points, so they will not have any wait points. So they execute. So in the same cycle as yours, whoever is the caller, in the same cycle as the caller is executing, whenever the function is called, it executes at that time, and then again there are no waiting and all those things. They'll execute and then they will give the return value to the caller function. So the following libraries are specified within AutoSAR. So we have fixed point, mathematical, floating point related calculations, interpolations, how to handle the interpolation of the floating point data, bit handlings, E2E communication, CRCs, and extended functionalities like 32-bit and 64-bit for the filterings, and crypto for the crypto libraries for the security related services. So all these are the standardized libraries which are specified within AutoSAR, and it is highly recommended to make use of these libraries instead of going with your own implementations of these library functions for kind of checksum or all those things, CRC calculations. So once you make a use of the standard libraries, you can be ensured that there are no mistakes in the development, or so. And even if there are some improvements, that will be again coming as a part of your AutoSAR enhancements. So you can keep ensured that, okay, now I have the latest implementation for these libraries. And whenever when let us assume a situation where you are implementing your own code, and your ECU is transmitting this communication data. And once on the other end, the other ECU is supplied by other supplier, and he has his own implementation. When when both of your ECU want to talk to each other, and then obviously if this implementation of these CRCs and these ETs are all independent and they are different, then obviously you will have a problem in your communication. So just to avoid all these things, again, AutoSAR has brought in these standardization of these libraries into their context, and they have given their indications and they have their own implementations already well tested, and it is already given as a standard. So please make use of these libraries in case of even if you're an application owner. And in case of BSW modules, most of the BSW stack suppliers, they will also show you, if you look at the code, they will be making use of the standard libraries, which are also part of the standard stack delivery. And the other next main point is the RTE. So now we have covered all the 5 pillars. Okay, so now we are now entering into the above level layer, the RTE, the runtime environment. So RTE is called as a virtual functional bus. So what do we mean by this virtual functional bus? Any idea from any of the participants? What do we mean by virtual functional bus? How it is different to actual bus? Does anyone know? Okay, so virtual functional bus is something which, like, where we don't have the actual any physical layer there as a bus environment. So it's like an imagination or an imaginary layer, okay, which doesn't exist actually, and it is spread even in the application layer. The RTE is just not limited to this. The RTE is spread across the complete application layer. So because the communication between application to a different application module is via RTE. So this RTE is like, and it is also extended beyond your controller. So we will see what is that about. So RTE is a layer providing communication services to the application software, AutoSAR software components, or AutoSAR sensor actuator components. So that's what we have seen. So all the application modules, or the modules in the application layer, will be making use of the RTE for the communication services. Above the RTE, the software architecture style changes from layer to component style. So here until RTE, below RTE, you will see different layers. Whereas in the case of above RTE, in the application layer, you will see the component style. So where we'll be seeing the application software components, and the division is based on components, or in some cases compositions. Okay, that's again a different topic to discuss. So the AutoSAR software components communicate with each other, with other components, inter and intra ECU and other or services via the RTE. So all the application modules, all the software components inside this application layer talk to each other over RTE, and then it is also supports inter and intra ECU communication. So when we talk about RTE layer, so RTE layer can be extended across to the other controllers. For example, when I talk about a driver information system, so you have a main controller for implementation of your software logic, and the second controller is for the graphic interface. So the process data need not be again given from, like, for example, the data need not flow again back to this microcontroller layer, and it has to be given to the other controller. So this RTE layer can be extended. So over IPC, for example, the RTE over IPC, and then it can be given to the other processor or the controller. So that's what we say, like RTE is supported across ECUs, inter ECU and intra ECU. And if you look at the main task is make AutoSAR software components independent from the mapping to the specific ECU. So now all this application layer is independent of whatever all the microcontroller you're using, and with respect to, we can say, the complete BSW. So, and if you look at the properties, ECU and application specific, so obviously all the software applications, the software components, whatever we develop, we will be developing for that respective ECU, and which is again specific to the application or the features of that respective ECU. So, and if you look at these application components, they are specific to a ECU. So you cannot see the same component in any two ECUs until the ECUs are for the same functionality. You will never see an application repetition or duplication in two ECUs. The upper interface is completely ECU independent. So with respect to the, for example, here if you talk about the application modules, they are like all the ECU independent. What they are saying is they're not dependent on the below level layers here. So the tips what we have to understand is the real-time use case need to move certain functionality to different ECU due to a limitation of resources. So now what is the advantage in bringing this RTE layer and the application layer? So what is the general use case? For example, when you are having a use case like now you want to move from one hardware to a different hardware, and now you want to make use of the same existing application code whatever you have and also the application design whatever we have. So now as a layer, the all of these application can be moved from one ECU to another ECU. For example, generally in case of for example performance issues and runtime issues and all those things, where the OEM understand at the very last moment of, let's say we are near to the production or near to the SOP start of production, and suddenly we understand that okay, my controller is not able to achieve its CPU load requirements and the timing requirements. In such cases, we might need to redistribute some of the components or some of the applications to a different ECU where the load is very less, and in our controller, in our ECU, the load is very high. In such cases, the OEM might be forced to redesign their system so that they will have to move certain components. And like we mentioned, now we are near to the SOP. So how easy is without this RTE or application layers is it will become a very big issue. But whereas due to this RTE and this application layer and the standardization, so we will be able to move the respective application component. Of course, we will have to update all the communication signals and everything which are now being given to this ECU. We have to also give it to the other ECU or move it to the other ECU. But as such, we need not redo the complete application software component design and development starting from scratch. So this is the real-time use case, and this happens, I would say out of 10 projects, every one project will have these kind of situations where almost at the end of the product life cycle, they will come across this CPU load issues and bus load issues. So where they will have to take some situations where especially with respect to functional safety and then security related designs. So where the design is completely done based on the safety and all, they would have given a lighter importance to the bus load and the performances of the controller. So in such cases, they will be achieving the functionality requirements, but with respect to the performance, they will fail, and then they will be forced to make use of these features which are supported by AUTOSAR in moving the components across different ECUs. So these are the very extreme cases which are also which incurs a lot of cost. But before AUTOSAR, yes, this was one of the major problem where the system is completely interlocked. It cannot be changed at any later point of time so easily. But now with this RTE layer coming into picture, this has become very easy. So now we have covered almost all the layers in the AUTOSAR. So now we'll just look at, okay, generally if you are an AUTOSAR developer, so what and all we will be coming across in our day-to-day situations. So we will see different stacks. So we have different AUTOSAR stacks. So AUTOSAR stacks are nothing but standard implementations which are provided by the different companies like Vector, Mentor Graphics, Electrobit, KPIT has KSAR, and then Bosch has iSolar, and so there are many stacks available in the market today. And what do we mean by an AUTOSAR stack? AUTOSAR stack is standard delivery of standard BSW modules which are developed, and they are generalized software delivery components where we can enhance these modules with our configurations which are needed for our respective ECU as per our requirements. And the generated code is always AUTOSAR compliant. So this is what is the unique or the specific feature of any stack. So the developer need not bother about, or he need not go and study the entire AUTOSAR standards to develop a module or to develop a feature. So the modules are already developed to go with the AUTOSAR compliance. So what we need to just bother about is what are the configurations which are needed to ensure that our requirements are satisfied. Just is ensured by the stacks, and then they always generate the code which is AUTOSAR compliant. All the standard interfaces are generated for each of these components as per the AutoSAR standards, so that the application layer modules or the complex driver modules or all the any layer is able to make use of the or interact with the other layer without any hassles. So these are the popular AutoSAR stacks that you have seen in the market. And now, when we talk about AutoSAR development or AutoSAR developer, so where do we belong? So any AutoSAR developer in our context, we should be able to either be belonging to these 4 teams. So application development team, where you will be working in the RTE layer, and then you will be interacting with the service layer modules, and you will also be interacting with the complex drivers. And if you are from a BSW team where you are working for any of the module configurations in the BSW layers, so then you will be working either on the service layer or EC abstraction layer or MCAL layer, and sometimes on the complex drivers. So, and if you are from hardware team, yeah, you will be working mostly on the MCAL and the complex drivers. And if you are from architecture team, we'll also have an architecture team for every ECU design or a system level design. So where they'll be designing the vehicle communication design. And Prevision is one very well-known or widely used tool for this architecture design, wherein you will be getting your communication extracts or system extracts or DBC files or any database files. So the database files will be generated based on the design of your vehicle communication network, and this is done by the architecture team. So why do we mention this in now in this slide is, so for example, we are now discussing on all the layers. So what, and each layer has different modules, and each module has lot of documents in the AutoSAR standards to read. So is it possible for me to read all these documents and then start developing? No, it's not possible. So even looking at my understanding, so now it's almost 10 years, but we would have gone through very least number of documents, or when on need basis we go and read these documents. But when you're actually working on some module, so ideally, like we have discussed in the very beginning of this session, we should always have a minimal knowledge about the layer above your component and the layer below your component, because always you have to ensure that you are developing or you are configuring your module, because because it doesn't satisfy the whole system, because only if your module is working perfectly, and if you are not able to cater the needs of the layers above and below, obviously your module will become useless. It doesn't serve the purpose of anybody. So always you have to have a minimal knowledge, very minimal knowledge, okay, about the layer above and below. That's what I have mentioned here. For example, if you're working in the application layer, it is not, we should also have a minimal knowledge about the services which are provided by the service layer. So when you're having an application, you will have services provided by the COM for the communication, NVM for the memory things, and DAG for diagnostics. You'll interact with the DCM module. So you will have, for example, if the DCM has a service port, and then obviously your module needs a client port, or in case of when we want to read some data, the DCM will have a client port and you will be the server. So you will have to understand what are the standards needed, or the minimal details about what does DCM expect from you, what does NVM expect from you, or what does COM expect from you, or what you can expect from them. So what are all the services which are available from the respective service module. So when in the application to implement your requirement, you will be expecting, okay, this particular functionality, this service will be available from my service layer. But unless and until you have the very minimal knowledge about what and all the services which are provided by COM, you cannot come up with the real or the optimal design for your application module. So there might be many ways of handling a particular functionality, but if you want to be having the optimal design from your side, you should have the minimum knowledge about, at least about the service layer. So if you're in the application, if you're from the development application team, and also about the complex drivers. So what are the services provided by the complex drivers in your system? So this is the minimal knowledge you should have. And similarly, in case of BSW team, we will have again people working in service layers. We will have people working in ECU abstraction layers and MCAL layers. So again, always be clear about, for example, if you're working in COM, so you have different interface module for different communication protocols. like, it can be CANIF, it can be LINIF, or it can be socket adapter, it can be other modules like IPDM or PDU or such things. So where if you are working on COM module, you should have the minimal knowledge about all the modules your COM module is interacting. This is what is needed. Not needed at the complete in-depth understanding, but at least with respect to the services on, or at least with respect to the interfaces that your module has with that or the other module. So you should have a minimal knowledge. Please ensure that you are not limited just to your module when you are working in AUTOSAR architecture. The main thing is the compliance and then how you operate with the other modules. And similarly, in case of hardware team, you should have the, if when I talk about hardware team, which is where they are working on MCAL, obviously the below level layer is the controller, which means you should have a minimal knowledge about what are all the hardware interfaces or the where your drivers are going to control or interact in the controller. So you should have the minimal knowledge about all the hardware related details from the data sheet of your controller. And also if you are having some complex drivers which are specifically designed for your system, you should also have this knowledge, because even the complex drivers in the MCAL layer, you should have the complete knowledge about what you are going to interact, so that you should not disturb the existing system. So that is very important. Always the knowledge about one layer above and one layer below. And obviously when you are in the architecture team, you will be bothering about the complete vehicle communication network. But whereas when deciding like which component should go and sit in which ECU and all, like we discussed, we should have some little bit sense about, or what we call concern about the resources of the respective controller or the resources of the ECU. So, and if you have a design which is actually not able to satisfy or not able to be performed using the available resources, obviously your design will fail at a later point of time. So right from the beginning of designing the system, please have some concern towards the available resources, available RAM, available CPU, available memory, and all these things when you are actually being a part of this communication design or the architecture team. So now with respect to the self-learning of AUTOSAR, so there are many documents available in the internet, and for preparing this presentation, I have just made use of the autosar.org standard template from the 4.2 standard. So autosar.org is the best place where you will get all the documents. All documents are freely available. You can download them, but each of them is again lot of hundreds of pages. So, and unless and until you read it, every document minimum 2 to 3 times, you will not get the complete understanding. And the next thing is obviously when you are making use of these things in your real-time use cases, like when you are executing them in your project, you will get obviously the better knowledge. So for references, you can consider autosar.org, which I've considered the same. Also something, the Wikipedia has a little bit simpler way of explaining the things and a high level. You can, for the beginners, it will be useful. And in the autosar.org, you can download any module related documents by this document search link. So you can go there and then you can download and then you can start reading these documents. So always when you search about any module, so you will actually have 2 search results. One thing is an SRS document and the other thing is an SWS document. So which one to read? So what do we mean by SRS and what SWS? So what do they contain? So when we talk about SRS will have what is required to be done. So to follow the standards of AUTOSAR, so what needs to be done is actually part of SRS, and how we can implement these requirements is actually mentioned in the SWS. So depending upon which stage you are in, for example, if you want to understand what is needed to be done to ensure that I'm AUTOSAR compliant, so generally this is needed for the tool suppliers. For example, if you are a person who is writing the stack, so you will definitely have to go through this SRS document. And if you are actually only implementing or configuring these modules, maybe my recommendation would be SWS. It's not a compulsory thing, but just my recommendation. So you can go through the SWS document and then understand what needs to be done. Because that is clearly explained in the SWS. Of course, it's huge documents. which takes some amount of time. And if you are working in AutoSAR, I think you should get used to reading these documents, because everything is there in front of you. Only thing is you should read it. All the points that we have discussed today are very widely available in the internet. We are not discussing, or we are not reinventing anything in the session. We are just again going through these things and going it together. It is, and we are also trying to bring in the experiences from different people. So now I think we are clear, and hope this session is useful. We are also planning for further sessions. So further sessions is on the CAN communication layer wise. This is already completed, and the recordings are available in our YouTube channel. And the next thing is we also want to do it for the Ethernet communication, and then PDR module. For the PDR module, the session is planned tomorrow, and then it will be followed with the OS in general, the very minimal basic things that you should know, or when you are actually planning to design your OS. So what are all the basic things that you will have to know, we'll cover in the OS session. And again, that will be followed with some function safety relevant configurations in BSW. So what are all the, if you are working on a function safety in a BSW team, what are all the different things that you will be configuring at a high level, we'll try to get an understanding, and in the RTE. So these are the further sessions which we want to plan. So that's it from our side. If you have any short thoughts, you can share, and you can now, if you have any points, you can discuss. Now the forum is open. You can share your thoughts. Any questions from any person? If there are no questions, we can wind up the session. Okay, thank you so much all. Hope this session is helpful to you. So I would request you to go through these documents once again, because from this session you will only get a high level understanding, and what is more needed is you go and read through these documents, that whatever we have discussed. And then if you have any further questions, yes, we can keep discussing in our next sessions. Thank you so much. So with this, I will end the session.
I have only one question, maybe at least not in today's session, then tomorrow we will discuss. My question is only like whenever we received a one RX CAN frame, processing purpose, exact time purpose, any formula is available?
No. So for example, we are talking, so the query, what I understood from your question is, so for example, if you are receiving a message at every 100 milliseconds to ECU, so now it comes internal to your controller, and you are now asking about what is the time needed to process this data and give it to the application module, correct?
Yes.
Or again, transmitting. So how we are asking about the time which is
but transmission purpose, then we'll say that based on our baud rate, within a 1 second, how many bits we can transmit.
Yes,
and maybe our messages contain a 15 bits or 17 bits. Then based on the calculation, at least I prepared a small formula and all.
Yes.
But receiving purpose completely based on the inside the controller.
Exactly.
So exactly, I need a, maybe my method is like a polling base or maybe interrupt base. Any two separate formulas are available or not? That is my question.
There are no separate formulas, but if you go to any of the respective stacks, now almost all the AutoSAR stacks, they provide this runtime measurement modules, RTM generally, wherein you will be able to measure what is the time being taken by each of these modules. For example, if you take communication as a thing, okay, so if you take the communication and if you see the CAN for the COM or CAN transceiver, so you can actually measure the time which is taken by the main function of that module. Okay, so now if you want to look at how much time it will take for after receiving it inside your controller, so on the CAN bus, on the bus level it is very clear. So and also on the receiving and transmitting, you also know at what rate your CAN controllers are actually running at. That's clear, right? Okay, so now what is important or which is out of our control is how much time it is taking from after receiving it in your MCAL layer until and unless it is coming to the COM and then being given to the application. Okay, application will always be waiting for the data which is coming from the SOM. So where is the block is the blockage is after MCAL layer until it reaches or made available to an application layer in the from the COM. Okay, so now it has to pass through based on your configurations and different settings. For example, in communication, when you choose options like, okay, I want the data to be communicated directly, or the data needs to be communicated only when it is deferred from the previous value. Okay, so you have many such filters, and also like we have discussed in the AutoSAR application, the AutoSAR layers, so each data has to cross all the layers and it has to come. And is this data processed individually? No, this data is processed as a part of every module's main function. So, and the main, for example, if you take COM will have a main function, and inside that main function you will have main functions for RX communication and transmission, TX communication. Okay, so all the modules will be executed cyclically based on the time frame it is configured. And let us assume we configure it to the lowest time frame whatever we have. Let us assume we have configured it for 5 milliseconds. So we have to ensure that whatever is the data that we are handling, the number of PDUs or the number of messages or the number of signals, whatever we are handling, are able to be processed within this 5 milliseconds of time. Otherwise, what will happen? It will cause timing issues. So if it cannot be too optimistic, like I will configure it for 1 millisecond or 5 milliseconds, what we need to measure there is how many number of messages I have, how many number of signals I have in my system, and how much time is needed for my COM module to synchronize with all this data or process this complete data within one cycle. So then based on that, you have to arrive at an optimal thing for COM. Okay, and then again you will have the below level layers like again CANIF. So CANIF has also need to do the same thing. And if you take in between, you might have the modules called PDUR. Again, PDUR has a similar kind of thing, like it has to process all the routing paths. Okay, and similarly again, if you go to the IPDM, if you have IPDM in between, again it has to process, and each module has again properties like transmitting the data directly, whatever is received from the below level layer, give it to the above level layer, or we will have some other functionalities like looking at checking the data whether it is changed or not. And in case of, for example, if you want some confirmations, so in case of receiving confirmation or transmission confirmations, so receiving what we call, there will be informations like there will be some functions based on the receiving, so you will have some RX based indications. So RX indications, so when you are having also such requirements where you are including some RX indications, you will also need to actually block or allocate some amount of time to implement these RX indications, because RX indication is again a function which will be called based on whenever this is. So all these things which we have to consider during the design. And how do I measure this time taken for each of these main functions? This is supported by the different stacks as a kind of RTM measurements, where you can actually measure the time taken by each of these main functions, where you can actually introduce some measurement points, and based on the difference between the end measurement and the start measurement point, you will come across what is the time taken, and you have to take all the records, and then you have to arrive at an optimal solution. And then obviously you have to think of a time frame which is more than, for example, the whole process is taking, let's say, 7 milliseconds. Obviously then you can go only a time frame for the communication. For example, the least minimal periodicity or the time you can give for your input message or output messages based on this time frame. For example, let's say input, so I'm able to read your data only at every 7 milliseconds. So if you're going to give me the data before 7 milliseconds, obviously I will miss that frame. So I can only, so the best optimal way is next optimal value might be 10 milliseconds. So we have to ensure that all our messages or signals in our system are not less than 7 milliseconds or at least equal to or greater than 7 milliseconds. So only in that. So these are the different runtime issues that you will come across. And when you are actually becoming more complex with respect to the new vehicle architectures, we are actually going towards very complex designs, where we are also including and we are also trying to achieve higher communication speeds. So the complexity is becoming tougher and tougher day by day. And to have these measurements, of course, so you will have to think of such kind of things from the very beginning of your project, and then you should have always continuous measurements being taken, and then you have to adapt your system accordingly. And whenever you are trying to add something new, so you should definitely consider, you have to do this complete cycle once and try to understand what is the impact that this new addition of this new module will create to the existing module. So how much this new module is going to come inside, how much time this guy will take. So obviously whenever, because it is layered wise, so each layer has to process and then only it will go to the next layer. So if you're actually introducing a module in the below level layers and then it is taking more time, obviously it will impact all the above level layers. And because if some of the layers are expecting data from this module in the below level layer, and if this guy is actually adding more time delays, then it is very clear that the whole system will have a time impact. And standardization of things, we don't have any such formulas. Many tool suppliers are coming with different tools to give you the actual picture. And honestly, if you have to speak, none of these tools are completely accurate. They are able to give you the picture, but they will only give you the data, but they will not be able to tell, okay, if you put this will work. So again, they will recommend you to try with the new value. This is what is our experience.
I'm also feeling the same. Like my question mainly like a intrusion detection system purpose. That means system is already developed and your CAN traffic we need to monitor again one more time. Like any of intruder is disturbed any of your CAN frames. So for example, your project contain a 3000 messages of CAN traffic. So when we are designing a IDS intrusion detection system, at that time we can able to monitor all 3000 messages is the best solution, or maybe any high priority list like a SECOC messages or any U2E messages priority list to only normal CAN messages out of for example, 100 messages are we configured as a SECOC, that is our priority list 1. And the utility frame is another 100, then that is the priority list 2. And remaining 2800, my way is I need to be ignored. Otherwise, I'm loading this some runtime or I'm consuming this some of the resources.
Exactly.
But existing some of the guys in the eScript or maybe Argus and our don'ts, we mentioned that we don't want any names. But some guys saying that within a nanoseconds we can receive one frame and that calculation and whatever I observed in real time with help of system testers or requirement testers, it is not at all matching. So that's only I should.
Basically, yes, there are concepts in the market today. Basically, they call it as the time synchronization concepts and all to achieve this, nanoseconds or second based or millisecond based kind of things. So, but again, it is based on the complex design of your system. So, for example, if you are having a limited number of messages in your system, the achieving higher time frames might be possible. If you are having a combination of a classic or non-AUTOSAR system, and then you have a combination of non-AUTOSAR and AUTOSAR system where you will have, for example, when you mentioned you are talking about 3000 CAN messages, correct, right? So
yes.
it's like high number, and then assume when you are actually moving towards Ethernet, you can actually go with maybe less than 100 Ethernet messages, correct, right? So as you are actually reducing the number of messages, you will get more time to do all these type of things. Basic rule what I can say is any new feature in any of the layer when we are adding, obviously it is very clear that you are taking some more runtime from the available runtime. Okay, and when you talk about even for the SECOC or any of the validation, secure validations, every validation is always like implementation or execution of some steps where you will be checking the validity of the data with some algorithms which you have written, which means you are executing some instructions, which means it will take some time. So, and if you're doing it for one message, obviously it is X seconds. So if it is for 3000 messages, obviously the time that you will be consuming for validation of this data alone is 3000 into that X amount of time, whatever we have calculated for each message. Okay, so obviously you're taking more runtime. So when you want to be more complex, so simply, for example, when you want to introduce a new feature into your system, it doesn't mean that since AutoSAR is supporting, addition of features and addition of these modules or enhancing these modules, it doesn't mean that, okay, AutoSAR will ensure that, okay, your performance things, your runtime issues, all those things are directly taken care. No, not. So as a system designer, you have to think about what will be the impact when I add this module, or when I add any, or when I enable or disable a feature. So when, even if you go with the existing stacks, for every enhanced feature that your stack is now bringing in, always the recommendation from the stack suppliers is do enable this feature only when it is strictly needed by you. Otherwise, it will have some additional consumption of the runtime. Okay, so no stack supplier will tell you definitely you have to enable this feature. So they will say, based on your requirement, have the optimal usage of the available features. They will always recommend to stick to the very basics if you want to be very stringent on your the final functional quality or the final functional implementations. All these enhanced features are generally recommended to be used mostly in the development time, and to be disabled in case of, because wherever it is not needed, they will ask you to disable or remove such things when you're going for the final production. That is known fact to all of us. But similarly, I think the question whatever you have put is like, do I need to apply this security for all my messages? If your controller is having that much of resources available to allow you to validate each and every data, every message coming inside, then you can definitely go for that. But general use case or the runtime example with respect to the controllers, whatever we are currently using in the automotive market, and the amount of code that we are executing, so it may not be possible. And especially with respect to the number of messages you are told, I believe you will have a lot of runtime problems, timing issues in your communication.
Yes.
So it
Yes,
is not recommended. So you will have to really try to understand what is strictly critical to achieve your functionality. Functionality, since the functionality is available, it doesn't mean that we can apply it to each and every message in your system. So you'll have to be, you will have to have your system what we call critically designed to satisfy your very functional requirement. Otherwise, obviously, the main problem with the new features coming inside our AutoSAR system is the bus loads and CPU performance issues.
And one more my observation from this side is, whenever some frame or some message is corrupted, at that time we are not logging any information. So that is also giving as a optional feature to the customer to customer.
Yes.
But instead of that, why not we need to standardize this. Whenever any frame is disturbed, then we need to maintain the log.
Yeah, so this is given as an optional feature because basically some OEMs, they have their own standard implementations. Okay, in for example, whenever there is a data thing, so the data is given to their own customized module, and the customized module has implementations to handle this corrupted data or a data which is received as invalid. Whereas some OEMs, they rely completely on the AutoSAR, so they expect the AutoSAR module to provide them indications that there is a corrupted data. So they gave it because not all the for example, if you take any specific OEM, each specific OEM has their customized stack modules as well. So if you go to any stack supplier today, and the first thing they might also ask you is that who is the OEM, and based on the OEM, for example, each OEM has their own security standards, they have their safety standards, so they want all those standards to be part of any stack that they are going to use in their vehicle. So if whoever is the supplier, so even if I am the supplier and I want to buy a stack for my OEM, the stack supplier will ask this question to me: who is the OEM? So based on that, they will have an understanding. Okay, this OEM needs this type of standards. This OEM doesn't need these standards. So, and based on that only, they will also deliver the stack with those customized components or without those customizations. And obviously, you will have a cost impact there. But this is what generally happens. So why this is coming as an option is, some of the OEMs, they have their own individual complex drivers, which they have from the which have been developed from years together with respect to their thing, and they have a better way of handling these things. Okay, so if you make it, for example, if you make that option as a compulsory option, then it will be like two things. One thing is the OEM has already one module to handle this, and when it comes to the standard AUTOSAR module, also will be doing doing this job, same job. It's like a duplication. Obviously, again, it will have timing issues. Right? We are consuming more than the allowed time. So if I have a better way of handling it, so instead of again doing the validations layer by layer, if I am the OEM, I can also decide, or if I am the software developer, I can also decide or design my own complex driver where I will be able to perform all these validations in a lesser time frame. For example, the similar example, whatever you are taken for Secosi. So, or the validating of the data was for security. So instead of using the standard AUTOSAR supplied validations, so if I just make use of those things, and then if the moment I get the information that okay, there is something corrupted, and if this information can be given to a complex driver module, the complex driver module can act faster rather than the layer wise things. So wherever you are looking at the timing issues, again that is where complex drivers comes into very specific importance. So that is what AUTOSAR has allowed you. So if you have certain specific requirements which are not common across all the OEMs and all the ECUs, then you better go for the complex driver implementation. So better you can design your own system, which is very timely, time efficient module, and then can execute your the requirement in a faster method, maybe 100 times or 200 times faster. So still you will be able to achieve the same functionality, but with using your complex driver instead of going with the standard services provided by the AUTOSAR modules. Got it?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? Okay, in that case, thank you for participating. I'll be closing the session now.